Interest is never enough. If it doesn't haunt you, you'll never write it well. These are the words of Stephen Heighton from A Few Memos to Myself, which is a short list of advice for writers who are starting out. I've always associated this particular piece of advice with confessional poets because I think they know it intuitively. Write what haunts you. I don't know if I'd call Delani Valin a confessional poet. It seems unfair to pigeonhole an author to a genre based solely on their debut collection. But so many of these poems are charged with the energy of a haunting, as if the ideas had been mulled over to the verge of obsession before finally taking shape as words, these poems. The title, Shapeshifters, seems to refer to how Valin takes on a variety of voices in a journey of self-discovery, while at the same time she observes how one's identity is out of their control, shape-shifting in a world that wants to make easy sense of you. The collection begins with a series of dramatic monologues, the first delivered by none other than the Starbucks siren. She's a powerful force of the sea, sinking ships with the flick of a fin, until one day caught in a fisherman's net and forced into the role of a coffee company's mascot. Then, an aging Barbie takes Botox shots between the rhino and labiaplasty while her husband is off gallivanting with younger women. Mrs. Clean complains her husband won't touch her without wearing his yellow rubber gloves, so she plots his untimely end. I'll spike his club soda with lemon and Clorox, watch his bald ass, magic erase that. There's a dark sense of humor, but at the same time, each character's inner thoughts are treated with the utmost respect, as if they were real people. I love how these opening poems give various mascots of corporate America a soul. The Michelin Man wishes he wasn't so damn round. In a dream I was sanded down, polygonal and sharp as a fawn's angled knee. Insults from guys in the shop glanced off the tapered thighs of that sound body. Towards the end, he accepts his size in a triumphant voice. I am the banquet of my being, bibendum, devoured at last by embodied life. Weight may wax, wane, but the moon of my belly is the altar of my crowned body. I like this touch, the word bibendum, the original French name of the Michelin Man, which makes him sound, at least in English, like a mythical god whose power is reflected in the alliteration. I am the banquet of my being, bibendum. These opening monologues are like a warm-up exercise, low stakes and accessible. They serve to prepare the reader, introducing difficult themes and ideas that will be explored in more personal depth later in the collection. As Valin says in an interview with Rob Taylor, exploring topics through personas brought me closer to myself by opening up a wider breadth of possible expression. After trying on a multitude of masks, I was able to glimpse the grounded wearer at the center of them all. In my opinion, Valin's poetry kicks into high gear when the subject matter becomes explicitly personal, from the poem No Buffaloes until the end. I enjoyed these opening monologues, but I was hooked on what followed. The 10-part poem No Buffaloes wastes no time, jumps headfirst into the murky waters of what it means to identify as Métis. I'm capital M Métis, the proof, official cards, forms, anatomy, high cheekbones, dark hair, red river veins, sanctioned subcutaneous topography. Is there an ideal? It's not me. I called my mother's mother grandma, not Nokum. Valin goes on to describe her difficulty in 4th grade connecting with Métis history. Her discomfort with the idea that certain physical features are more native than others, and the awkwardness of ethnicity checklists and special attention given by well-meaning education assistants. You're Métis? You need a tutor. Is it a betrayal to call her mother's mother grandma instead of Nokum? Is it a betrayal to take Ativan and Clonopin instead of rose hips and sage? Describing her mother, Valin writes, like me, she's questioned on authenticity by her own community. You don't have lived métis experience. What counts and who decides? We all have stories. We're all legitimate. Don't believe otherwise, Mama. That's bison shit. I like how Valin is so committed to the authenticity of her journey of self-discovery that she explores the contradictions between her behavior and beliefs. I want to adapt without assimilating, but maybe I'm kidding myself. With my $5 soy lattes, credit cards, and Halloween costumes for dogs, I'm shoulder deep in colonial capitalism. The last poem in the collection, Storytelling, feels like a companion piece to No Buffaloes. Both are like short adventures where Valin, looking for the right path, stumbles upon parts of her past. She imagines her ancestors dancing within and challenging her. They jump rope over the helices of my cells. She ducks under his arm and says, "You know what I don't get?" She twirls. I don't get why multi-generational trauma is seen as one-sided, as if no one passes damage down by doing the displacing. She cites the article I read about those police who go home, beat their families, perpetuating the old generational double dutch, etc., like who are their ancestors? Reading this collection, I was let in on secrets, innermost thoughts, ideas ordinarily shared in confidence with a close friend. The poems Teeth, Hypochondria, and Wellness focus on questions of health and the root of one's personal wisdom. Telogen, Effluvium, and Magic Lessons are both long poems that center around a sexual assault and recovering from trauma. Despite the many challenges in her path, Valin doesn't wallow in self-pity. Like Mrs. Clean or the Michelin Man, she may be a victim of societal pressures and unhealthy relationships, but she rejects the idea that this is a defining quality of her identity. In that same interview with Rob Taylor, Valin describes a kind of writer's block in her early 20s. My problem was that over time, I felt my poetry had become one-dimensional. I was writing the same poem over and over, if I could write at all. In retrospect, I see that I had cornered myself into the narrow identity of sad person. Shapeshifters pushes bravely forward past the sad person and dares to end on a positive note, a moment of joy shared with her mom. We joked. At home, we made blackberry bourbon jam. The hot syrup was sticky and sweet. We danced with spoons dangling out of our mouths. We laughed about my sister dropping a sack of potatoes and flipping them off in frustration, about the man who tans his leathery balls on his balcony, and about the ludicrous concept of being unlovable, so that all of my stories were jarred and jostled, unprepared to describe my joy. I want to change directions here and point out a couple things about the cover and order of poems that seemed awkward to me. First, the cover grabbed my attention. I have a soft spot for surrealist collage. This one almost hits all the right notes. I like the moth perched where the nice lady's head should be, but the bus seems out of place, like it's either floating or headed straight into the ocean. But even more out of place is the word poems. Can you see it? It's barely noticeable. I like that it's the same turquoise as the nearby high-rise windows, and whoever positioned the word did place it over a white cloud for contrast, but it's still almost invisible. The second thing that threw me off was the way the poems were grouped, their order and placement in sections. It seemed strange to me that Dear Gregor Samsa, an imagined address to Kafka's most famous character, wasn't included in the first section among the other monologues. Also, I wonder in retrospect why Telogen Effluvium appears before Magic Lessons when, chronologically, it should be the other way around. But the mind is messy, and there's no clear order when we begin putting things in place, sorting things out. Once more, that interview with Rob Taylor comes to the rescue, shedding light on the editorial process. I thought about putting all of the poems in the exact order I wrote them so that maybe some progression would unfold, but they rattled against each other. I think that it was a case of me being too close to the material to pull back and make sense of it. Once I read it in the order Silas and Emma suggested, it clicked. The shape of the book mirrors the process I had undergone to access my own experiences. It's like a map. If the order clicked for Valin, then there's more for me to uncover about the poems and what holds them together, and that's a great reason to go back and reread them. Don't forget, this is all just one person's opinion on Delani Valin's Shapeshifters. I hope you enjoyed my take, and I'm curious to hear your thoughts in the comments below. Bye bye.